and welcome back to another episode of the Let's Talk Wildlife podcast. I am your host, Courtney, and in this week's episode, we are discussing one of Australia's most venomous marine animals. I have had the frightening yet extremely exhilarating experiences with these animals. They are not just our jellyfish. They are our box jellyfish. They are some of the planet's most venomous marine creatures. So we are going to learn of first aid, when our stinger season is, and I guess debunk some myths surrounding our box jellyfish stings. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you listening or watching. Let's get straight into this week's episode. This is our conversation on our box jellyfish. So what is a box jellyfish, you may be asking? Now, a box jellyfish is a marine animal, and they are named after that very boxed shape bowel or body that they have. They are transparent creatures, and of course they have those very long tentacles. On these tentacles is where they have those stinging cells. These stinging cells produce that venom, which we will definitely get into in this episode. But there are roughly 50 or so species of our jellyfish, of our box jellyfish. Only a few have that venom that is capable of potentially killing a human though. And they live here in Australia. Box jellyfish are found all around the globe in warm coastal regions, but here in Australia, they are found in a few states and a territory. They start right here in our beautiful state of Queensland, over into the Northern Territory, into Western Australia, and down the Western Australian coastline. Our box jellyfish ranges in sizes. They can grow up to 1 foot in diameter and have tentacles reaching lengths of up to 10 feet long, which is absolutely bizarre. These creatures are so fascinating, and I think jellyfish and octopus tend to kind of be seen as aliens, that they don't really belong here on Earth. I mean, they absolutely do, but they are that fascinating and such cool creatures that they are seen as aliens. One feature that does set our box jellyfish apart from a majority of other jellyfish, take our Portuguese man of war, you may know him as our blue bottles. So our blue bottles, for example, they don't actually swim. They use the currents and the wind to get from place to place. Our box jellyfish can swim. They can choose a direction to swim in, and they can control that direction and control the way that they are swimming. This isn't seen in a whole bunch of other jellyfish. Our box jellyfish are also incredibly unique and such well-adapted and formed marine creatures. They have a set of eyes on each side of that box of their head, and they have quite sophisticated eyes and advanced eyes. With that swimming capability that they do have, they can swim up to about 5 to 7 kilometers per hour, which is quite fast. But they use this swimming technique to be able to catch their prey, to be able to hunt. The majority of times their prey will come to them, accidentally swimming into those long tentacles, but most of the time this is small fish that may get caught up in their tentacles. A lot of very curious people, especially younger people, like small children, tend to ask a very great question actually, and that is, how do they eat? How does the box jellyfish consume their prey? To them, it's just this jelly that has no mouth, has no ears. It's technically to them not even a life form, but it is so far from that. That is a complete myth. Our jellyfish are and our box jellyfish are very technical and well advanced and developed creatures. But the box jellyfish will use those long tentacles which are covered in stinging cells, and their prey, so let's just take a small fish, the small fish will be swimming and it may accidentally get caught up in these tentacles. This is where the box jellyfish will inject that venom once it is in contact with the prey into that fish. And this venom actually paralyzes the fish. So once our small fish has made contact with their tentacles and has been injected with venom and now potentially paralyzed, the box jellyfish will actually retract their tentacles. So it will kind of move in like a motion, pulling up the prey to that bowel shape, the big jelly part of the jellyfish. Now, something really cool about our jellyfish is they consume their prey whole. So once they have brought that fish up, they will swallow that fish whole. They do not have a chewing capability. Once the fish is digested in their gastric cavity and they have absorbed all the nutrients that they need, the box jellyfish actually expels any waste from the same hole that they have just consumed the fish with. So our box jellyfish actually has one hole for everything that they do, including consuming their food. So the venom from this box jellyfish works by releasing microscopic stinging capsules. Now, when the prey is captured, or unfortunately if a human is stung by a box jellyfish, our cells, so our human cells, actually react with chemicals from the jellyfish. So when the venom is released and injected, it will be absorbed from our skin into the dermis, the layer of our skin. This venom that our box jellyfish produces is a mixture of bioactive proteins. So this may cause inflammation at the site of the sting. It can also be very, very severe and catastrophic. In some cases, you may experience cardiac arrest, paralysis, severe pains in the abdomen, in the limb, in the section or the part of the body, I should say, where you have been stung. Very extreme cases with humans, some scarring may be left behind, and this can be extremely severe scarring as well. I probably won't put in a picture here just in case you're watching and you don't really want to see that. But if you're curious, you can always just research a box jellyfish sting scar. They can be extremely bad, but death can also occur from our box jellyfish stings, and it has right here in Australia. So it is so incredibly important to be seeking medical attention straight away, whether you are the one that has been stung or somebody that you were with. I think one of the biggest misconceptions about our box jellyfish stings, and something that I still hear today, and it's really important that people know the right information. That's why it's a great idea to be doing your own research and listening to podcasts, so you do have the right information and you're not also spreading misinformation around in the community. But that is urinating on a box jellyfish sting. This is not just silly, but extremely harmful. So urinating on a box jellyfish sting will actually make it worse. It will fire those stinging cells even more than you have been stung, and it will increase your pain 1,000-fold. So please do not be urinating on a box jellyfish or a jellyfish sting at all. Urine is not acidic enough to be able to neutralize the toxins which have just been injected into your skin. This is why on our beaches here in Australia, you will find vinegar. There will be little boxes either up on the beach or I guess like the shore, kind of where like you enter the beach. There will be boxes with vinegar in them. This is because it actually helps neutralize those toxins and stop it from firing once again to help relieve some of that pain. So you may want to pour some of that vinegar on the sting for about 30 seconds to help relieve some of the pain. Please don't try to pull out or I guess scrape the stingers from your skin. If you have a sharp object like tweezers, you may want to very, very carefully take out those stingers. But if you are swimming at a beach with lifeguards, all the lifeguards will have the proper and right equipment to be able to help out. This is why it's really important to be swimming at a beach that have lifeguards and also be swimming in between the flags. So if something diabolical like this were to happen, you will be safe. You know, the lifeguards are right there within an instant. Of course, before pouring vinegar and taking out the tentacles, it is important to be calling 000. The faster the emergency services can get to you, the better chance you have of survival. Of course, if you are with someone who has been stung, it is a really great idea to try remain calm as well and to reassure the person that everything's going to be okay. There is truly not much you can do between the time you have been stung and by the time that the emergency services get there. So by freaking out and panicking, I know it's so much easier said than done, but it really doesn't help you or the person, the whole situation. So it's really important to remain calm, ensure you are checking the person's breathing to make sure that they are still breathing. And in the very worst of cases, you may need to perform CPR. So I think everyone, whether you work in a field where you need to know CPR or not, I think everyone should have that skill. I feel like it should be a requirement to know CPR in cases like our box jellyfish stings or like our stonefish stings, which we have spoken about on the podcast before. It's also very important to not be applying bandages or pressure bandages to your box jellyfish sting. Like I mentioned, there is really not too much you can do between the time you have been stung and you were taken to the hospital. So try to stay calm, try to reassure the person if it's not you that has been stung, and don't touch or put anything over the site. That's really important. I think a lot of people who get stung by a venomous creature or bitten by a snake even, the first thing their mind goes to is, I need to bandage it up. And in some cases with our venomous animals, this is the worst thing that you could possibly do. But in saying this, not all stings from our box jellyfish cause death or such severe reactions. I think only roughly around 69 deaths has occurred here in Australia since the 1880s. So it's still a high number, and we definitely don't want to be losing anybody from a box jellyfish sting or an animal bite, anything like that. But here in Australia, we don't just have our box jellyfish we have to worry about when we are swimming in our oceans. Of course, we have larger predators like our crocodiles and sharks as well, and our stonefish and blue-ringed octopus. There's a few. But we have another jellyfish which is the size of a pin. They are transparent as well, so they are extremely difficult to see when you are swimming. They also live right here in Queensland. Further down than our box jellyfish though, our irukandji start roughly around our Hervey Bay area, up into our North Queensland, into Northern Territory and over into Western Australia. They are so tiny and they are so incredibly lethal to humans. If you are stung by an irukandji, first aid for our box jellyfish and our irukandji are identical. The symptoms will be very, very similar, but with our irukandji, something that's very frightening is some of the time the bite or the sting isn't even felt, and then it could possibly be too late. So it's really important to know when our stinger season is here in Australia. And again, you can't see our irukandji. They are this big and they are transparent. So what can you do? I do. What can we all do to prevent ourselves from becoming potential victims to our irukandjis or our box jellyfish? So firstly, stinger season here in Australia varies from state to state, and just take the Northern Territory. With the warming of their waters more frequently throughout the year, our box jellyfish are now being seen 12 months out of the year. It started with our summer months, so the first 3 months, and then it went to 8 months, and now it's at 12 months. So they are there all year round. Here in Queensland, our jellyfish tend to start emerging around November, lasting until around May. I think the best advice that I can give you guys is just to stay out of the waters, especially in these seasons where jellyfish will be more prominent, abundant. There was a case actually over in Western Australia. A lady had been stung by an irukandji, and she unfortunately had to be induced in a coma for, I think, a couple days. This is just how lethal these tiny creatures can be and can leave a human. So I would say, I hope she's doing well now. I hope she's okay and she's living her absolute best life. And that would be so extremely traumatizing. I have encountered a ton of our jellyfish, not just box jellyfish, but also man-o-war, or the blue bottle. There was one time when I was swimming up north around central Queensland, and this was many, many years ago, probably like 4 or 5 years ago now, and I was swimming, and the water was honestly probably like waist deep. It was not extremely deep at all, and I was sitting down, kind of just like floating, and I see something go straight past me, and it was a blue bottle, and I went, oh, well, lucky he just kept on going, and I was okay. And then another one, and then another one. I was in a swarm of blue bottles. I don't know how, but I did not get stung by any of them, and I waited until they all left, just hoping that not one came and accidentally touched my leg or my arm or my back. So then I exited the water. But that's just how easy it can be to not see our jellyfish. And of course, you don't really think about these things when you're, going to the beach or exploring. It's kind of just like a past thought in the back of your head until you see the animal. And then you're like, oh yeah, they're here. So it is extremely important to stay aware of your surroundings. If I didn't see those blue bottles, who knows what could have happened. I've been also snorkeling in that same area, and I was under the water snorkeling, and I've kind of looked up towards me, and there was a massive jelly 2 inches away from my face. It was just a jelly though, no tentacles or anything, so it was completely fine. But I was like 2 inches away from headbutting this jelly. And actually on the beach where I grew up, we had tons of big jellies that would be washed up, and I was always so curious, and I would examine it, and I would go back home and I would use our family computer to research it and be like, what is it? Why is it washing up on our beaches? And I think that's another reason why I got into wildlife. It started from such a young age. I have, grown up around animals. I grew up on the beach, so I was always encountering our jellyfish and sharks and sea snakes. And then my family was also very adventurous. My dad would just wake us up, at 3 a.m. on a Saturday morning and say, come on, we're heading off, we're going on an adventure. And we would. My siblings and I would grab our pillows and we would get in the 4-wheel drive and we would just go somewhere. I've seen wild emus as a child and snakes and such a vast majority of the Australian animals. So that's definitely a reason why I love our wildlife and I want to protect them. I was doing that as a child. There were such small creatures that I would, like ladybugs that I would find, and I would like get grass. Oh my gosh, I would get grass. And I would kind of build like my own little environment for them, still outside. And unfortunately they would fly away. And as a child, I would be devastated that the lady beetle didn't want to stay in my little home that I had built it. But I've loved animals and I've tried to take care of them throughout my whole life. So I feel very thankful and grateful that I, even as a child, got to encounter such extraordinary wildlife like our jellyfish. But yeah, staying out of the waters, especially in our summer seasons. If we're talking about the Northern Territory, I would recommend staying out of the water all year round. I mean, you don't just have to look out for our stingers over in the Northern Territory, but we have our crocodiles that are moving out and about every day of the year. There have actually been, I think, 14 deaths in the Northern Territory. Unfortunately, all 14 of these have been children. So knowing which animals live and, you know, are in the environment where you are exploring is really important. That is so devastating that all 14 in the Northern Territory have been children. So being a parent, not me personally, but if you are a parent, I should say, it's really important to do research and to know not just for our oceans, but for creeks, for lakes. I mean, up in North Queensland, we have saltwater crocodiles that do inhabit our freshwater creeks as well. We have our bull route in our creeks, which can live in ankle-deep water. So it's a very devastating thing that children, unfortunately, end up in those situations. So even as an adult, it's really important to have that knowledge and to keep gaining that knowledge. There's always new things to learn, and that's really, really important. If you are interested in learning more about our wildlife or our box jellyfish, you may want to check out the Surf Life Saving Club Queensland. They have updates on which animals have been sighted. They go into great details about our box jellyfish as well. There are websites for our tropical North Queensland and our Great Barrier Reef website, which has information, very detailed information at that, about our box jellyfish. Please always be respectful of the animals that you are encountering and know that there is not one single animal out living and existing on this earth that is out to get you. I am so grateful that I've encountered our jellyfish and blue bottles, and down in Tasmania last year, I believe it was, down in Port Arthur, I got to encounter a lion's mane jellyfish. These jellyfish are some of the largest jellyfish in the world. So that was very, very exciting. But our box jellyfish are extremely important for a number of reasons for our oceans and the ecosystem. Our box jellyfish balance out our marine life. They consume small creatures and control their populations, and a bunch of animals that you wouldn't even really think of do this. I mean, we have crazy populations of our sea urchins, which can kill our kelp forests in our oceans. You know, so we have animals that will consume large amounts of our sea urchins, and our box jellyfish does just this for our oceans and our coral reefs. They are also prey to a whole bunch of other marine life as well, and I think one of the most familiar are our sea turtles. Our box jellyfish and our jellyfish have survived several mass extinctions here on Earth. They have been around for roughly 600 million years. So for some people to think and say that they are aliens, they might just be. They are extraordinary creatures, and they have existed far, far longer than humans probably will ever exist. But thank you so much if you have made it all the way to the end of this episode. I hope if you ever do encounter one of our jellyfish or box jellyfish, it is in a very safe way and environment, and please stay safe when you are out in our waters as well, in our oceans and beaches. But I will be seeing you this time next week, of course. But thank you so much. I really do appreciate you. Thank you for all of the kind words on last week's episode on our sugar gliders. You guys absolutely went wild for that episode. So thank you so much. But I will be seeing you this time next week. Bye for now.